Hi, I'm Marc Dresner, and this is Partnerships TV coming to you from the Partnerships in Clinical Trials Conference in Phoenix, Arizona. This is our 20th anniversary, 2011. Joining us today is Mitchell Katz. He's the Executive Director of Medical Research Operations at Purdue Pharmaceuticals. Mitchell, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Mark. I'm really looking forward to this, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you. Let's dive right in.
Okay.
How about we talk about the outsourcing environment, especially with regard to clinical trials. What's changed? How's it changed? And why? What's going on?
So if you really look at the industry, since the 90s, there's this integration of the pharmaceutical industry. Consolidation, integration, acquisitions, and what that's done ultimately to the industry is it downsized, a lot of the functional operations within these organizations, and it required them to continue to develop their drugs using outsourcing. And so that really is what's happening since the early 90s. You can see the escalation with the pharmaceutical industry outsourcing more.
Okay. And in general, sponsor organizations appear to be much more focused on relationship management than perhaps they were in the past. The most obvious indication of this trend to me seems to be sort of the quest for new metrics versus your conventional KPIs.
Right.
Now you have KRIs, key relationship indicators, and so forth. What's your take on this? Why do we need these new tools for assessing?
So if you look at the early days of outsourcing and its increase, what you saw was more of a transactional approach to, buying a service. And what's happened over the years, it became clear that the CROs became extensions of the infrastructure of these sponsoring companies. So it became very clear that they were part of the team. It wasn't a them and us anymore. It was more of us. Okay, so what's happening is, like with every other organization, they're consolidated to the point where these relationships really make a very huge difference on the performance of the CRO. So for example, looking at key performance indicators is something we always try to include in the relationships with the CROs. Now it's about the relationship. It's about the team. It's about the extension of your own internal team. So what we want to do, as we would our own employees, is have metrics that we could measure ourselves. How well are we doing? Not only from the performance perspective, but how well we're doing from the overall relationships. So more companies now, what they're doing is they're having professional feedback surveys within the organizations themselves to see how well the CRO is performing, and the CROs, from the same sponsoring company are given surveys to see how well are they doing on the same program. So it really truly is a collaborative development program.
So nice, clear two-way communication on a level that really didn't exist prior to. Is that safe to say?
That's absolutely correct.
Well, let me change gears just a little bit here, because I know this is an area of great interest to you, and that is it's an increasingly small world that we live in. How has globalization affected your role?
So for me, globalizing all our development programs, what that required us and me to do is to really understand the different countries you wanted to go into, understand more about the practice of medicine in those countries, looking at opportunities, and understanding that for every country you go into, there are regulatory hurdles. They're not only hurdles for getting submissions of your protocol into those countries, but it's also how do you get your drug into those countries become even more challenging. So what that required me to do was to really better understand those regions and territories that I wanted to develop our product in. We wanted very much to understand the regulatory challenges, the logistical challenges, how do you get samples and specimens outside the countries into a central testing facility. So all those things required me to really understand the differences in these different countries.
Where does the regulatory piece fit in terms of your criteria for deciding what country to go into? You obviously probably have a lot of factors.
So when you're really thinking about doing a global development program, it's important to get a sense as to your timing. How long is your development project? How long is that going to last? more importantly, okay, how is it that you're going to sort of, roll in these countries into your projects? So for example, if you know China takes the longest time for the regulatory authorities to give you approval, then that would be your first country you would submit your documents to. And so that once you understand your overall timing, you can be very strategic in what countries to submit, okay, first, and then what countries, okay, that are quicker that you can go in later on.
Mitch, what advice would you have for your functional peers and for CROs as well, moving forward in terms of, where are we heading from 30,000 feet up, and what do we need to watch closely?
I think it's very clear with the number of FDA audits that are taking place globally, across the globe. It's very clear that the message to the CROs is that they're going to be accountable for the quality of their deliverable. Where before it was the sponsoring company, it's very clear that the CROs have to pay attention to the quality. So if there's any message that I can give to the CROs, it would be focus on quality, okay, and that will basically improve not only the relationship with your sponsoring company, but it will minimize the risk, okay, for them to have any issues with the agency.
Would it be safe to say that in this day and age we can also achieve that level of quality through relationships while also keeping on top of our costs and maintaining our time frames and maintaining efficiency overall?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think once you have that relationship, a very strategic relationship with the CRO, and you are sort of looking at metrics and how well you're performing, and you're very efficient, the answer is absolutely. What you're going to get is much more efficiency, okay, less spend, okay, and you'll be able to sort of leverage that for the next program you have with the CRO.
So you got a win-win-win.
It's a win.
Yeah, great. Mitch, thank you very much. You've given us a lot to think about, and I appreciate your time.
Thanks.
And thanks to our audience for joining us. That'll conclude this episode of Partnerships TV, and I hope you'll tune in next time. Thanks.